All right, so in this video, we're going to start talking about covered arcs, which is going to come into play with things like your vehicles, your anti-tank guns, anything that's got like a big gun on it that's pointing in a certain direction. And the easy way to understand it is your covered arc is exactly where you're pointing, okay? So if we have a card like this that's out and we don't have a marker on it, you can understand that the top of the card is its covered arc. Now, if you change your arc, that's when you're going to have to place a marker on it to designate which direction it's pointing. Now, this is also going to come into play with vehicles that have armor values, like our tank over here, where you see it's got 5 in the front, but 2 in the flank. So when it comes to what is considered its flank, that is anything not within the covered arc. So when you're firing forward, anything shooting at it from the sides or back, is going to be hitting it in the flank. So covered arcs can be changed through a move or fire action. Now, just so you understand what is covered with the covered arc, this M76, this little anti-tank gun here, let's say its covered arc is pointing forward. It's just natural. This line here and everything in front of it is what's going to be in its covered arc. So these sectors along this line and behind it is going to be considered its flank. It's not covered arc, so it can't fire adjacent to it. If its covered arc were pointing this way to the left, then this line becomes its covered arc, okay? So it can hit all of these areas, all these sectors here, all along this line and then to the left. But these areas will be out of its covered arc. It cannot hit any of this and back. Same if it were pointing to the right, you would use this line. Everything that way would be in its covered arc. Everything here and back wouldn't be. Same for behind. The bottom line would be the designator. The easy way to think about it is that fat end of the covered arc marker, whatever line it's up against, right? So it's up against this line. Everything ahead of that, is in its arc of fire. Everything equal to it, behind it, out of it. So remember how I said you can change this covered arc when performing move and fired actions. The thing of it is you have to pay attention to what type of unit is performing the attack. A turreted vehicle like this tank here is not going to incur a penalty from having to change its covered arc, but a tank gun like this one would incur a penalty. It would get a +2 penalty to hit when it's changing its covered arc. So if it changed it and was pointing at this direction to perform an attack over here, it would get that +2, but it's only going to be for that impulse only. After that, it's going to be good because it'll already be facing in that direction. Remember, like I said, though, turreted vehicles do not have that penalty since they can more easily change their covered arcs. Also, like I was saying previously about the fact that you can change your covered arc when moving, it's not as much you can as you have to, because you're going to change it to point in the direction that you're going. So if this gun were going left, we would change that covered arc to point left. If it was going forward, we would change it to point forward, right, back, back. Just understand whatever direction the unit goes is the direction you're going to change that covered arc. Now, there is a different type of move that we haven't really spoke much on yet, but we're going to get into that a little bit later on, where you're not moving out of your sector, you're just moving within your sector, a little sideways move. If you're doing one of those, you do not have to change your covered arc. We'll get into that type of move a little bit later on. And one last thing to note when it comes to covered arcs is that if you have an AT gun that starts in a building, it would be placed because of a scenario, then it's actually not able to change its covered arc.